I am here with the fabulous Nicole Parker. Thank you for being here, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Being here virtually, at least. Some of you may have seen Nicole in Mad TV or movies such as Meet the Spartans, Disaster Movie, Funny People. She's also been on Broadway a couple of times in Martin Short, Fame Becomes Me. She played Red in The People in the Picture. And also Elphaba in the hit musical Wicked!
Kind of right away at like 7. So not right away, but pretty early on.
Right out of the womb.
Say again?
I said right out of the womb.
I took right out of the womb, pretty much. I mean, I used to entertain my family when I was like 3 after dinner, I'm told. I mean, I remember it a little bit, but I was always starved for attention, I suppose. My sister, who was very shy and older than me, but very shy, was enrolled in some acting classes by my mother at a really good regional theater called South Coast Repertory, which has won the regional Tony before. And it's in California, and they have a great kids program. And they enrolled her just in the hopes that she would learn how to branch out and sort of like come out of her shell. She took classes, then I took classes. And there was a recital at the end of the class, and I remember singing a song, and I remember the audience laughing, and I remember instantly I was like, that's what I'll do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So that's how I do.
Perfect. And you're doing it.
I'm doing
You know yourself.
Celebration throughout us, that's all to do.
Like what
Really,
you're
are all
about it.
different. I mean, like, TV and movies, you might get like 3 lines of dialogue, like Rondi Reed, actually. What do you do for an audition? A lot of times if there's a lot of material, you coach with someone if there's time. So Rondi Reed, who was Madame Marble, right?
Yeah.
I just coached with her this afternoon
Oh, wow.
for an audition that I have in New York. And she had just been to an audition for a film, and she had 3 lines. That's it. You know, it's just ridiculous. You get 3 lines, and they don't even really, there's not much involved. And at that point, you realize you're literally just going in to look right. You know, like I'm sure a million actresses are going to go in and say the 3 lines just fine.
Yeah.
It's really just, okay, is she the look she needs? Is she the type the director wants it? Does she fit the breakdown of the character? I mean, it is so much more of a flip of a coin, I feel, than theater, where, you know, for a theater piece, you're going to have to be able to sing the music. You know, first of all, there's a lot of people who like, they were so great for the part, but they simply can't sing it, or they were so, I mean, it still comes down to things like the right height sometimes, or just the right feel.
Yeah.
But I do feel like with theater, you're going to get more material usually to work on. They tend to spend more time with you. You'll probably more often get feedback in the room and be asked to try something a different way. And with TV and film, a lot of times you do it once through, and they just go, thanks, you know, and it's really fast.
Oh, okay.
It might feel fast in theater, but until you've done a bunch of like film and TV auditions, it's like not nearly as fast as those. So it just depends. I mean, definitely like to be as off book as you can. You still bring in the material for the sides, but it just helps. There's so many other factors that you can't control that are going on, that all you can really control is to be prepared. You can't control what you look like. I mean, you can control how you appear, but you can't control what they think about you look, and who they choose, and who they want, if they thought you were great. You know, all you can really control is how prepared you are. And so
of course.
The most off book you can be, you know what your strong choices are, and just be prepared is honestly the best thing you can do for an audition.
Because sometimes you're not what they're looking for anyway, so, you know.
And you know, a lot of times you'll hear this a lot, is that your audition is really not even for that part, it's for the people in that room, so that they're like, oh, we'll remember them for the next thing, you know. That just as long as you, like, when I'm always happy if the casting director was happy with me. That just happened like 2 days ago. I didn't get something, but she was really happy. I'm like, that's good. She'll keep calling me, you know. Like,
she'll have you in mind.
Cool, and I didn't waste her time, you know, and that's it. And she liked what I did. You know? So that's honestly, that sometimes is like all you get. My story is very different from anyone else. When I first did it in New York, I was the first person to do Elphaba without having ever done it anywhere before, as a standby, understudy, on tour, what have you. And it came about. Well, sometimes I think back, I'd like to have had some of that experience. Nice. Just being like thrown into the fire. But it came about literally because of the Martin Short show. In the Martin Short show, Fame Becomes Me, there was like a spoof up song of Wicked. It was Martin Short imagining his own funeral, and that Broadway belters would come out and thing. And, you know, the lyrics were like, this key is too high, you know, it was like that thing where there was belt our brains out, you know. And there was a very thing at the end. I mean, it was right when, like, I had seen the show by then, and it was, I was nervous. I think Julie Murney came to see the show one night, and I knew she was the Colonel. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so
that's what I'd seen at the time,
but the joke with Bernie Telsey, who casts Wicked and casts Hairspray, he's one of the most influential casting directors in New York. If you saw Smash, you saw him on it. As himself. And it was kind of, as a joke, he sort of, I don't know, during rehearsal one time was like, hey, you should do the actual thing. You should do Wicked. I was like, haha, yeah, right, you know. And, but I kept singing that song, and it was, you know, I proved that I had the chops, I guess, and they kept on mentioning it, you know, you should really try out. But I had to go back to Mad TV, and that was another, I think, year and a half before they called, but you just kind of have to wait your turn, because of course it's always a cyclical thing, you know, like, when do they need to hire someone new? When do they have time to rehearse someone brand new to the show? When are they going to put you in? So then, out of nowhere, kind of, in, like, August of 2008, I think, I got an email saying, would you like to come in? We're going to be in LA. So that was perfect. I could just do it right there. And it was great. I was like, wow, they really made good on what they were saying, which was, you know, they heard in my voice in that show that I could do that, that range. I had that range. And honestly, like, I don't really know how else I would have, I mean, who knows? It's because of Marty's show. For me, personally, that's how I was able to audition for Wicked. And what's funny is that when I left Marty's show for a couple months, Donna Vivino came in to replace me. And that is the exact same reason why she got the audition.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Because it was the song was very, it was supposed to be kind of Defying Gravity-ish. So, I mean, if you could sing that song, you knew that the actress could probably sing. I mean, not necessarily, but it's like, oh, you could hear it. And that's a lot of times what a casting director needs to hear is just that, oh, you know, she can do it. So it's really funny that both of us, because then she went out on tour and I was on Broadway, and we would text each other like, haha, isn't this funny because of Marty's show? Now we're painted green every night. So mine's a little bit unique, but that is how I got it. Huge differences. Number one, audiences. You know, the Broadway audience is wonderful, but it's not. There's almost a bit more of an I don't want to say expectation, but you know, when you go to Sacramento and the show's never been there before, there's an excitement and like a very palpable, intense energy that it's coming to their town. They take an ownership of it. You know, in New York, they're like, we flew across the country. We've been waiting for this for, you know, a year. We just decided to drive into town and win the lottery. With Sacramento, it's like we heard 2 years ago it was going to come to our theater, and now we're finally seeing it in our town. And there's just there's an ownership there, and there's an energy in those different cities that is really fun that I had not experienced before. Not a better energy, just a different energy, you know, that I really liked. And in places like Salt Lake City, where it's such a tiny theater, and so like every theater is different. Sometimes the audience is right on top of you. It's a lot more intimate than the Gershwin, which is also kind of fun. So that's like a positive. I'd say not a negative, but a challenge the road puts forth that the Broadway production doesn't is the fact that you're literally changing climates and sometimes altitudes and theaters and living spaces every 4 to 6 weeks. And I'd say for a different role, it's not a big deal, but for Elphaba, it's just like, oh my gosh, I had like the supplies, the equivalent to like a very old person in like a home. I mean, like the things I'm required to like fix up my room every time. And it's that thing where, you know, everything has to be just so to feel like you have a good show, the sound and you know, your dresser, which changes from city to city, and your route that you take, you know, to the stage. So, you know, on Broadway, that never changes. You just do it enough times, you're like, oh, this is how it is, and this is how it always is. Every 4 to 6 weeks, you have to relearn, you know, you have to sort of reset. You know, you get your show just dialed in, and then you have to move.
Then you got to move it,
yeah. You city, you're like, oh, this sound, I don't like this theater, but then by the 4 weeks, I'd be like, this is great, I don't want to leave, you know, it's just like, you're constantly having to readjust, and like I said, I think for a different role, it wouldn't maybe be such a noticeable thing, but that was challenging. It was kind of like, oh, and yeah, luckily we were in some great cities, San Diego and Vegas, but I started out in Denver, which is a mile high. You know, but in terms of like the actual physical aspects of the show, some things about tour are really much easier, whereas like that run, you know, the run where you have to run all the way down the stairs.
Those death stairs you showed me. Yeah.
For no good deed, you have to run. Well, on tour, there's no trap.
You just run on the
so
stage,
it's
right?
It's amazing. You finish the scene in the corn, you run off stage, you hang out, you take some sips of water, you talk to one of the monkeys. You're like, oh, I still.
You're talking to the monkeys.
Run right on for no good deed, and I love that.
That was. I remember you were telling me when you brought me backstage, May of 2009, I think it was. You showed me the stairs, and you're like, I wish it was just like an inflatable slide. You just slide down because it's literally running back and forth, and you have that giant dress on.
You have to run before the two most challenging moments, and so it was. I mean, sometimes it would pump you up in the song. More often than not, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so exhausted, and now I have to sing this song. So that's really nice. The only thing about tour is that when there's no trapdoor whatsoever to be had on stage, like for the end when she pops out. The end, they use this well.
They use a well. Yeah, I've seen like videos of that.
And you have to perform like a Chinese acrobat.
Yeah, you like
to like freaking get out of that. They get to hide in the crazy like
it worked.
Which I don't think I ever nailed.
Yeah.
Because flexibility is not my strong point. And I mean, I would literally just then hug the fear and laugh. Just to be like, I can't believe I'm doing this so poorly. And I think the audience was always confused. There was you missed that. Like, oh, she just popped out of the ground, you know. So it's
there's a
I understand the fix. I understand why it's a pretty great fix if you have to have a fix for if you don't have a trapdoor. But I mean, when I would get to a new theater and be like, oh, it's a well theater. Oh,
yeah, goodness.
You're gonna be crouched in that thing, you know.
So it was changed like from theater. Sometimes it would have a trapdoor, sometimes it'd be a well.
They have trapdoor accessibility, but there's some older theaters that don't. I'd say there's only 2 cities I had to do it in. I had to do it in Sacramento, I believe, and I think I had to do it in Salt Lake. Yeah, I did for 6 weeks.
Salt Lake City.
So, because it's a very, very old theater.
Yeah.
And you know, you get things like that theater's so old, it takes 2 days to load in the show. And they had the doors open the entire time. And because of how hot it was in the summer there, and because of how old the building is, it took another 48 hours to bring the temperature down. So we were doing the show that weekend, and the temperature was literally 92 degrees.
Sweating your green off. Like,
dying.
I'm literally melting.
And again, that's the kind of stuff that doesn't happen, you know, at home. On tour, there's all sorts of times you hear about, like, the fire alarms going off the first night because the buildings aren't used to the smoke. Yeah. So then, you know, the show stops in the middle. It's really bizarre. It happened a couple times to us. So I mean, yeah, there's differences, but I enjoyed both. You know, both have their ups and downs. You know, but I really enjoyed tour probably because I just had great cities and it was where my families lived and got to do it with Allie again. And there's just a bit more of a not laid back. I mean, everyone still works really hard and does their job, but it's just I don't know. It's almost just a bit more laid back atmosphere. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
In a good way.